Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the SANDCAST with Try and Travis. Today we have a special guest from my alma mater, now the fresh new coach at USC, Dain Blanton. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on, you guys. I've been meaning to hopefully get on this show for a while, and finally got the invite. You know what I mean? It's one thing if you try to get on and pick up the phone, but you kind of want to organically wait and get the call. And finally, I got the call, so we made it happen.
We want to make sure we're good at it first before we bring on the big dog.
Oh, you guys are plenty good. What are you at? 120 shows?
Somewhere
in there.
That's awesome. Congrats on
fun.
that. Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you've been doing plenty. Normally, it's been funny. Our guests, it's like, well, how's your off season been? They're like, well, I sleep in and I go to the gym and then I take a nap and then I sleep some more and then it's bedtime, so I go back to bed. But you are probably the busiest guest we've had on in a pretty long time.
Yeah.
How
I remember those days when I could sleep in and that whole deal. And now I got a 22-month-old son, my first kid, and that's keeping me busy. Got the new head coaching job, at USC. That's about 4 months old.
Yeah.
So that's been really busy. And but I was telling Try before we began the show, it's just when you're doing something that you love and it's fun, you're fired up to get up and get into work, and it's been awesome. It's been really great.
And it's not like coaching at USC is a totally new deal for you, but I'm sure a head coach is a totally different matter.
Yeah. I was the assistant for 4 years, a volunteer assistant under Anna Collier, and learned a lot of how the whole college system kind of runs, and totally different experience though, being the assistant to being the head coach, because every little detail, the buck kind of stops with you. So you can't be like, oh, well, what do you want to do? It's like you're there and you got to just constantly be making decisions, which is a lot of fun too, but it is a lot of responsibility. And you just want to create an awesome experience for the players, get them a good education, and hopefully get them some rings on their fingers. That's what it's all about. And having a blast so far. Yeah, for sure.
Are any of the girls that are on the roster now, did you coach them before?
Yeah, absolutely. Haley Hallgren, Sammy Slater, Joy Dennis, Tina Gradina, who has qualified for the Olympics for Latvia, which is amazing. Wow, she's redshirting now this year, and she's got two more years of eligibility.
Incredible.
Yeah, pretty crazy. She came on and kind of took the whole national circuit by storm. That first year playing with Abril Bustamante, who became a incredible player.
Abril could be an Olympian.
Yeah,
she has all the talent that you could ask for.
Exactly, and I actually just saw her on campus. First time I've seen her walking in a while. She had a torn labrum in her hip. She had hip surgery, and so she was running around in a scooter, and now she's up and healthy and getting strong again, and she could take her career anywhere she wants to go. And to see the development of the athletes over those few years is probably the coolest thing.
Yeah, sure. Have you so Tina is still redshirting? Because I know that when I talked to her last year, she's like, I'm going to redshirt and try to qualify for the Olympics. But me and Try were talking about it, that now that she's already qualified for the Olympics, we didn't know if she'd do just a couple months at USC and then...
Yeah, I think she thought about it, and just what an incredible summer that she's had, winning the European Championships and then winning that qualification event to lock down the spot. Yeah. And wow, talk about stress relief, getting that assurance of being in there. Because I remember when Eric and I had our run for the Olympics in 2000, it was up to the very last swing, everything counted. Yeah. And to be able to lock it down before, actually it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because
it's the easiest it'll ever be for her, probably.
Yeah, and I don't know if I think we were able to win the Olympics because we were groveling for so long, and we just became battle tested. Yeah. But there's no one way. Yeah. And that's kind of my coaching philosophy as well, because you get players that have been coached by 10 different coaches when they get to Division I college level. And so you don't want to break down everything and make it different. You kind of want to find that happy medium. And I'm always like, hey, if you don't believe in this philosophy, let me know. Let's find something that works for you. Right. But a lot of times you're using, scientifically, if your platform's like this, you're probably not going to shank as many balls. Right. Yeah. But... you're kind of selling. But, yeah, Tina is an incredible talent, crazy work ethic, and just amazing mental focus.
Yeah.
You know, there's some days, you know, practicing with her and where she's so locked in, she just doesn't want to talk, you know, just leave me alone. She's either focusing on working on something. She's a type of athlete. It's like a dream for a coach because you can tell her, hey, you got to do this, and she's going to do it the next time, and then not forget.
Right.
And then later be like, Coach, you see that? You see that? Did it? Like, I mean, it's like a dream because usually you're like, you got to do this, get outside again or whatever. And she's the type of player who's like, Coach, you see that? I did it. You know, like working on it constantly.
You on your toes.
Yeah. So you don't have the excuse of like, oh, I didn't see that play. You better be looking every time. So you're absolutely right. Keeps you on your toes, but. A dream, and a lot of the athletes, like I mentioned, that I've gotten to work with even before as an assistant are great. We got some solid players and exciting.
Yeah,
some exciting stuff.
Like you mentioned, Haley Hallgren, which I think she's phenomenal. I think she was probably last year like the most improved player that I saw from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And then you got a big transfer coming in with Haley Harward. That was a good get.
Yeah, we just signed her last week.
Then you got Delaney Maple and Megan Kraft, who we saw in the
does his homework
semifinals
right
of
now.
Odessa.
This is
My guy right here.
This is pretty solid right
Hit the
here.
ground running.
Yeah, we got the Norse twins.
Yeah. Do you know, have you figured out or like even started experimenting with who's on what court? I know it's the fall season just ended, but everything was so new.
Yeah, we mixed it up quite a bit in the fall. We had 4 different competitions, so got a lot of different looks and a lot of different combinations. But I have a good idea. I don't know if when I'm going to reveal it, but it that's kind of part of the deal. But the way Anna used to really do it, she was just like no secret. Like, I don't care, like, if you know my lineup, like, let's go. You know what I mean? Let's go. And I think we'll be in a position like that where you don't have to get real squirrely. Some coaches, that's just the way they like to do it. They're like, try to mask someone for a while. But I'm pretty straight up. And but we do have, if we're doing some mixing around, it's to figure out what's that best combo and who's got the best chemistry. And who's going to work out. But like I said, we got some really great players, very fortunate. And, the way Anna left, which I thought was premature because she always told me probably 2021, 22. But when she retired and I heard about it in, I think it was June, it was like, whoa, that's my dream job. I want to go after that. And so it really accelerated the timeline and how there's that domino effect when someone makes a decision. And I, the stars aligned. And fortunately, I got the gig because a lot of people wanted that job. And now that I'm in there and learning the ropes, it's about excellence. I mean, I don't have to tell you, Troy, the academic and athletic excellence at USC is at a very high level, which I love because a ton of support, and it's been awesome so far. Yeah,
it seems like you're just like the enthusiasm is clear. Yeah, it's fun to see.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and I worked into the contract that they were okay with still doing the AVP stuff and the Amazon stuff because the national championship is in the first week of May, so it's up against Huntington, which I haven't been doing 5 years because the last 5 years I've been in Gulf Shores doing the national championship as an assistant, and then last year I got to broadcast it, which ESPN did an incredible job with. But that's the only tournament that kind of conflicts, and then you're basically off for summer where you're doing most of your recruiting.
True, yeah.
But you're not practicing or anything like that. You don't fire that up until school starts late August, early September. So
I know when I stopped playing for a little while, for 2 years there, my strategy to keep my mental game in it was to try to learn how to broadcast or just see if they'd allow me to be in the booth, right? Because I got to watch all these top players and just watch a lot of volleyball. Is that kind of, obviously you love broadcasting, you've been doing it for a while, but is that kind of part of the strategy? Is now you can go watch the top players in the U.S. and then bring all that info that you see there to see how the game has progressed and bring it back to your girls kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess by default in a sense, because you know when you get to the tail end of your career, which was say 2007, 8, I started you see the writing on the wall, like, hey, I want to do something different. I don't want to travel. And, to be successful on the men's tour and the women as well, you want to be one of those top 3 teams. You got to be playing internationally as well as domestically. And it's a lot of work and a lot of travel. And it had been, close to 10 years of that constant travel, and I wanted to get into something new, and that's when I reached out actually to Tom Fuhrer at the time. He was the executive producer of Fox Sports West, and I remember I said, I just want to shadow, I just want to somehow shadow some reporters, learn what's going on. And it probably took a year for me to get like a call back that, where he's like, hey, why don't you come out and check out the high school football championships right here at the Home Depot Center or StubHub or I don't know what it's called. It keeps changing names.
StubHub now, I think.
Right, where the Galaxy plays.
Right.
And they were having the high school football championships. I went, I shadowed, and then the next week they said, well, next year we need a sideline reporter for like Friday Night Lights or Friday Night Football.
Wow.
And it was a cool thing to do, and a lot of people say, how did you get involved? It's in broadcasting. It was interesting taking a step back, too, because people think like, oh, you're Olympic gold medalist, you're all this, and then you're going to go and broadcast high school football, right? And you kind of have to just kind of leave the ego on the side, and you want to learn a new trait. You're late to the game, so it was the greatest place because you could just totally mess up. I was always told, don't take an A job when you're doing C or D work,
right?
Because you might only, and you might only get one chance in TV, and they're like, not so good. But with the high school football, everyone was kind of new, and we were all coming up. I used to work with Geeter and Lindsay Rhodes, who's on the Total Access now for NFL, and she was a host at halftime. Geeter was a host as well, and we had like five talent on a football deal. It was pretty crazy. They put some crazy resources in it, and I just got a little better, and by the end of the year, they put me on some UCLA and USC basketball games. And then I got some pre-game, like Angels and Dodgers, pre- and post-game stuff, doing interviews. And I wanted to kind of go away from volleyball because, I knew I could be an analyst, but to kind of go a different direction. And then I subbed in for someone. I remember I got the phone call one afternoon, and it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and they said, are you free? Are you in LA? And I said, yeah, I'm here. And they're like, the sideline reporter for the Clippers is sick. Can you do a Clipper game? And this was like 08, right? And I think it was 08 when the Celtics won the championships. And I said, who they playing? It was Boston. And I was like, I always was told, like, say yes even if you don't feel prepared. That's the only way you stretch yourself. And I said yes. I remember I ran home. I think I got a newspaper, read, because I didn't have a clue what the Clippers were doing back then. Got like a suit. Before I know it, like 4:35, I'm at Staples interviewing like Mike Dunleavy, the head coach, and doing the thing. And I remember I was about to go out and do this pregame hit, and I didn't know the story really, but it's just kind of fake. And I found this room in the back and was trying to rehearse and practice. And then in the next room, which was just a curtain dividing it, the girl who's doing the national anthem decided to start practicing, like, while, so you're trying to focus, and this girl's singing, and finally I was like, I just got to go out. It was like 7:15 for 7:30 tip-off, and they threw it down to me, and I rattled something off, and I've never seen the video to this day, but they called me back, and so I did a couple games then, and that year I did 3 or 4 games, and then I kind of topped out. I thought I need to get representation, and I ended up getting represented by a guy named Lon Rosen, who handled like Magic Johnson's career, and now he was doing some broadcast representation. And once I signed with him, I remember one day him calling, and he said, I got you 15 games for the Clippers. I was like, so fired up. Hour later, he's like, I got you 20. And then by the end of the day, he had me on all the home games. He's like, he sold them on the fact that, the Lakers have continuity. Why are you guys always throwing a new reporter on? And he he got the whole thing. The next year, the Fox Sports West got the whole package, 82 games. So they were just doing the home games.
Yeah.
So when it was perfect timing, because then I was doing all 82.
Right.
I was on the team playing.
That's
so,
awesome.
and
You were?
Yeah, I did that for 5 years.
Wow.
And that was a cool time too. That was like kind of the Lob City time with DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin. And then I had 2 years of the Chris Paul kind of era. So right around 2012, 13 is
Must
when.
have been a blast.
Oh,
I remember
so
seeing
good.
you down there. I was like, oh, that's a beach volleyball player.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool doing something different. And it was fun, going to Staples every night. And, you got to get your suit game kind of on point because you're on TV every night.
Right.
But, yeah, traveling, you realize, because you know how it is with the AVP and the FIVB and playing beach volleyball, it's tough because it's like a golf or a tennis, but we don't quite have the funds, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you're not just jumping in first class because at the end of the day, it's kind of coming out of your pocket.
Right.
So you really got an idea of what a really really top tier professional league like the NBA. You're dealing with the big three: the NBA, the MLB, or the NFL.
Yeah.
It's just there's such revenue being generated that it makes sense. But I remember the first time I got on the plane, and I went. The whole plane's business.
Yeah.
Business class, it's
like
reconfigured. Yeah, but the front are even bigger.
Coaches.
No, the front's all players. Coaches are kind of in the back, and they can face one another. They have those.
So they can chat.
Yeah, they can do meetings, watch film, and then media and everybody else is kind of in the back.
It's customized for the team.
Yeah,
What they need.
basically, there's a charter system, and I think Delta runs it, and they have a whole fleet. So this plane that drops you off might take off and go pick up another team, take them home. Someone's coordinating.
Crazy.
They probably have. But I remember the first time I got on south side of LAX, kind of private terminal. You get, I get on, and in the back in the galley, it's just like sushi. It's like nice layout, and I'm like, I'm just killing it, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, this must be the food, for the plane.
Coming from beach volleyball.
Yeah. So I'm just, I'm grinding, I'm feeling good. Get in, no announcements. No one's telling you to buckle up. Or you just
security?
Yeah, you go through security,
Okay.
right before and tell them what you want to put under and what you want to put up top. And like 5 minutes into the flight, the flight attendant says, what do you want to eat for lunch? And I'm like, I've already killed it, but this is just, I guess, appetizers.
Right.
And they're just constantly being fed.
Jeez.
And you land, you go to, Four Seasons or the Ritz. They're living the good life.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience. And now being back in volleyball, and I actually can't say back in volleyball because I never really left it. I was just doing, because I could do the whole NBA season and then do the AVP. It's like, it was a perfect mix. The seasons didn't conflict at all. But doing what I do now for the AVP and Amazon was incredible. I was doing everything for the major series with Hannes Jägerhofer, but from Austria. But that seems to have kind of, you probably know the state of it now more. And I think they're going to still try to do Austria, Hamburg, and Stade.
Yes.
Is from what I was told.
I know the events are happening. I'm not sure if Majors and Red Bull are all on board with it.
Got it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, those events are happening.
So when I first signed with them to do the commentator, the world feed, they were at, I want to say 4 events. That was when Croatia, Stade, Austria, and Hamburg were happening, and they were projected to go to 8. I think they were talking about Prague and the Czech Republic and Rome, and it just never happened. And Fort Lauderdale was going for a while.
True, yeah.
And it was supposed to go to 8, and it just never worked out. And obviously that's a show in itself probably.
Yeah.
And who knows all the actual details. But it's a bummer because I think that major series on an international level gave us a taste of what it could be.
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but those are some of the best events that we've ever played in.
Yeah.
in terms of top to bottom fan experience, and
VIP,
it didn't happen. There was a pretty penny being spent,
yeah.
and that's probably why it was not sustainable.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of leads you to the AVP. It's so cool to see something that's on this trajectory and stable, and the players have a platform to do their thing.
Yeah.
So it's I think what Donaldson has done is pretty incredible, especially when you look at where the sport was in 2011.
For you to even say the word sustainable while talking about a beach volleyball tour means that he's done a really good job.
Yeah, he's awesome. And I love how humble he is. He's like the guy, he doesn't, because I have to sometimes, as a sideline reporter with NBC, they want to hear about from the owner, the guy who's running things, and he's always kind of shies away. So I leave him alone now.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But how cool, though.
All right, we're going to pause here and take a quick second to acknowledge our lovely sponsors.
Support for SANDCAST comes from a new sponsor, Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, which in beach volleyball, this is a well-groomed sport. You want to be looking good out there, which is why our code for 20% off is look good, play good. And you also want Manscaped because everyone knows or probably knows a guy who has had a troubling Manscaped story. I had a buddy in my fraternity who used scissors down there, and it just doesn't work all that well all the time, and that's why you have Manscaped here to help you out. It's redesigned the electric trimmer. Their Lawnmower 2.0 has proprietary skin-safe technology, so this trimmer won't nick or snag your nuts. You don't need that in your life. Trust me. Manscaping accents are finally a thing of the past. Try?
Well, and don't use the same trimmer on your face as you're using on your balls. That's just nasty. Manscaped also has the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. You're already using deodorant on your armpits. Why are you not using deodorant on the smelliest part of your body? Go ahead and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code LookGoodPlayGood at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job, ladies and gentlemen. Your balls will thank you.
So that is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code LookGoodPlayGood today.
Speaking of balls, Travis, Wilson just came out with a new ball. That's the new Optics ball with the OPTX technology. It's definitely been my favorite ball since I was a kid. I used to play with Wilson back at the Outrigger Canoe Club, as everyone's heard many times over the podcast. And honestly, the Wilson's the best ball in the world. If you talk to any of the athletes, the Americans, they all want to be playing with the Wilson. There's a reason that those are the balls you're seeing out on the beaches, whether it's California or Florida or somewhere in between. The Wilson ball is the go-to, and now there's a completely different look that is built to make you perform better, to see the ball better, but it's the same feel. So go to wilson.com, get yourself a new ball, because if you don't have a new ball, then you're just that guy on the beach or girl. And use promo code WilsonSand to get your discount today. I'd like to take this moment to let all of you know about Firefly Recovery, something that I take on the road with me when I'm traveling. I usually use it on the plane because you know how your legs get all swollen when you're traveling across the world. Is a way for us to recover faster with increased blood flow. There's these knee straps and they have these nerve stimulators on them, and basically it helps you recover. And you'll see a lot of beach volleyball players wearing them. And you need to get yourself a pair today at fireflyrecovery.com. All right, everybody, now it's time for your Pacific Coast Wealth Management Olympic update. It's been quite a grind in this 2019 season, and the season is finally over, so we are officially in the off-season. The top American team is Taylor Crabb and Jake Gibb, and they're in the 8th spot in the world. Bourne, yours truly, and Trevor Crabb are in the 10th spot. Meanwhile, Philip Dahlhauser and Nick Lucena are in the 17th spot, still looking to fill 2 more finishes to get there, 12th. And then on the women's side, April Ross, as always, is in the 2nd spot with Alex Kleinman. They've been dominating this year. But in the 5th spot, Carrie Walsh-Jennings and Brooke Sweat. In the 6th spot, Sarah Sponsel and Kelly Clays. Yes, the American women are absolutely stacked. And in the 7th spot, Kelly Larson and Emily Stockman. It is going to be an insane qualification year in 2020. We're all looking forward to it. Hopefully, Bourne and Crab are there. Aloha. And now back to the show. It's such a cool perspective too that you have. Like, not many people have that perspective. Like, most beach volleyball players have that perspective of our sport, and then we look at the NBA and all these other sports. Like, whoa, like they're on another level. Yeah. But you kind of have experienced that, and obviously the revenue is there. But you've experienced like what the athletes are like and the coaching and the personalities of that sport, and now you kind of coming back to our sport and you can compare the two.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it is. It's a different breed of athlete because a lot of those basketball players that make it go along the system. You know, they play high school, they get into college. They're usually gonna be drafted before they're seniors, right? And so they go from being kids, 18 to 20, to multimillionaires very quickly. Yeah. And some handle it better than others, and a lot of times, you know, like they say, the money doesn't make you, but it does reveal your character even more. Right. So
they skip a lot of the life lessons. I feel like that we have to like grind through, or not we, like every normal person on earth.
Right. And when there's not many professions that can pay as well as the NBA. That's for sure.
It's insane. You go to one. Like, I went to a Vikings game in Minnesota the other day, and I saw that place, like, almost sold out. I'm like, damn, this many fans are a regular season game. Yeah. And this is all of our fans for an entire season throughout the whole world, including who's probably watching on TV. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows how much. But it's pretty insane. I'm oh, that's why they get $50 million.
Yeah. And the TV contracts. And I mean, like the NFL, you look at the NFL, and there's like 5-6 TV partners. Yeah, right. You know, they're actually on Amazon on Thursday nights. You know, in addition to whoever the main TV linear partner is, and then the Sunday night game and the Monday night game.
There's football like 5 days a week now.
And I think that's the big thing for volleyball. Has been the big challenge is not only exposure but accessibility. Right. You know, the kid's not at home watching every week, you know, it's hard to keep up, you know, and that's what's awesome about the streaming and where we're at now. You can kind of watch like a la carte. You watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it, and I think that's the best feedback that we get with Amazon is like, I feel like I'm at the event. Like if you're not there, you can kind of still feel like you're a part of it because they're on air for 10 hours.
Kevin Barnett and Cameron Irwin are heroes for being on the air for that long.
Brutal. It's so draining. It's crazy. It's more draining than playing. Yeah. When I was doing it for a little while, just spouting off what I was doing.
They talk about the same sport in different matches, but people are like, man, Kevin, he said that same thing like 3 times. Like,
did I mention that we're at the Manhattan Beach Pier and sponsored by, you know?
They're awesome. They work hard, and it's been so cool working with them this last year, and we just have a blast.
It seems like
you know, it's fun. It's a great way to showcase the athlete as well, that they can come up. You know, you came up numerous times, and it's great for your sponsors. It's great for basically everybody involved, which is it's a win-win all the way around for sure. And for sure. I wish we had more events. You know, we'd love to. I think we're at 8 this year again, and we're at great spots. And I like that they're not just going anywhere. Every place is very calculated and thought out, and basically the top media markets in the United States. And so I know Donald's being very careful adding on and not doing it just to add on.
Right. So, and I love that he, like, when you look at the stops, like every year it just gets bigger and bigger at each place because he's established like the fan base that people know what weekend to come out. And, like, the VIP tickets for Austin sell out in, like, 10 minutes. It's crazy. And, I mean, every place is just getting bigger and bigger, too. So I think, like, when he adds a stop, maybe it'll just be one. And we'll just go to that spot for 2 years so that place is established, and then another one. Yeah. It's smart.
I like it. I wish San Fran would come back. I like that spot. That was kind of cool.
The problem is the date that we had was overshot every year. So all the top teams are gone, no matter what.
Yeah, that's a big issue too. Mm-hmm. It's tough to have tournaments when you're not having your top guys there. It's it's like running a Wimbledon with no Federer and Nadal or Djokovic. It's a tough sell, and I know that's a big issue, but there's so many tournaments internationally, and it's so hard to juggle, and sometimes they're not as cooperative, and so
we have that conversation a lot on here. Actually.
And that would, that like if there were a united player front, which has always been a challenge, then the players would have more leverage to, hey, we got to work this schedule out. If there's 4 entities putting on events, here's the deal. Yeah. Rather than it's kind of the reverse. Mm-hmm. It's like we're just, as players, you're just kind of waiting to see how many opportunities there are. Right. So it gets tricky. It's a tricky deal.
A lot more complicated than a lot of fans would recognize.
Yeah. Right.
Well, you mentioned, we talked about the Beach Major Series and how big they were. What was like the equivalent of the Major Series when you were kind of peaking around that, the early 2000s?
Well, I mean, obviously Klagenfurt, which was Hannes's event,
Did it start around that time?
My first year, Eric and I went there in 1998, and I remember we got second to Brazil, and that's when it had kind of just started. There was like regular bleachers, and it was funny. Every year it just got better and better and bigger in the VIP, and it just, that whole formula really works in Austria. Right. And people would fly in from Vienna, and everybody was there. They didn't even know volleyball, but they'd be there and watching it on the big screen and the VIP.
Still to this day.
Yeah, and the people that spend the night. And the cool thing is Hannes has always left a certain section for free, like whether it's through lottery, but you see people camping out, and so they've never been priced out, because that was a unique event where he could have just locked it down and probably made millions in revenue from just tickets. Yeah. And so it was that event that was by far the thing. And then to have the guy who created that event try to replicate it and expand it, I think where he came into some different problems were you can't run that same type of an event in the United States. It's like the VIP, for instance, so awesome, but the clientele, you got to match up with your clientele. Right. Yeah. Like you go into a beach volleyball, you want to have some beers and maybe some burgers and some hot dogs. Like you're not looking for caviar and like what, but maybe some people do. Some people do. It's just I don't know if we have the numbers. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. I like it. I mean, it's kind of like swinging for the fence.
It feels amazing as a player too. When you have, like, the player party. Yeah. Or you have access to VIP and whatnot, and you're like, wow, like this is the real deal. Yeah. Like, we're getting the top sirloin and the lava cake and all this.
On the international level, that's one thing I always said. Klagenfurt, before a lot of people even knew what it was, it's like that was the one international event where you felt like a professional athlete. Like you got in the airport, there's 20 shuttles waiting. Where are you going? Oh, you're going, jump in, you're at the hotel. Yeah, totally. You walk out of the hotel, there would be shuttles taking you to the event, food. I mean, you were covered. Yeah. You just had to show up and play. And to answer your question, that was the big one. Yeah. Of course, everything was newer back then because 96 was the first year that beach volleyball was in the Olympics in Atlanta, where Karch and Kent won, and it was pretty cool. Whitmarsh and Dodd getting second. So the first Olympics, we go 1-2 on that men's side. And then for Eric and us to pull it off in Sydney was really crazy because we were the 9th seed going in. Right. And that shocked a lot of people, and that to this day, probably one of the, if not the biggest upsets in terms of what was on the line in history. Because we had played Zamarco and Ricardo 4 previous times that year and lost every single time. Oh,
wow. Tough to beat a team 5 times in a row.
Yeah. But they were, I'm sure, feeling pretty confident going in. Right. But we just studied so much, and every time we lost, it was a couple points. And you know how it is where you're just thinking, if I can clean up my game just a little bit, I'm right in the mix, and that's what happened. And
the pressure almost builds for them each time.
It's true. It's very true, and then I mean we've had so much success in the Olympics. Beach volleyball has, you know, for Todd and Phil to do it in 2008, and then of course Misty and Carrie winning 3 in a row, and then Carrie winning the bronze with April. What a feat that was, and it looks like Carrie's going to make the Olympics again.
She's in a good spot.
Yeah, she's in the driver's seat for sure. It's hers to lose at this point. She's positioned herself. I think she approached it with a plan. She's put herself in position, and now you have less experienced players kind of chasing her. Right. I think this would be her 6th Olympic Games because she played indoor in 2000.
She's in good position, and she has all that experience, like 100 times more experience than anyone. She's also in the 2nd position. Yeah. So it's like...
It's huge, and I always tell people that don't know the sport, the beach volleyball is an experience sport. You rarely see anyone come out of the gate and kill it at 20 years old. Right. You know, like Kent Steffes would be probably the example of a guy who came out pretty early and was dominating pretty young. But I would say, and you might have different numbers, try 28 to 35 are probably your peak years, something like that.
Do you think it's... we're starting to see players peaking earlier on the international stage? Because you look at, you know, a lot of guys that Brazil's throwing out there, like Alvaro's pretty young, and then obviously Anders and Christian, you know, 22 and 23.
Alvaro's probably, what, 26?
I think so. And then, but in the U.S., everyone does have a tendency to peak later.
Yeah. Well, I think people are training younger internationally, and I think the focus is, like, we're going to play beach right away. And I think over the years, most Americans, and I don't know about your experience, but I loved beach. I used to spend the night down on Laguna Beach to watch the Jose Cuervo, you know, it was the AVP event, and you guys like St. John and Randy would walk on the court, and Dodd and Hovland and Akatubby and Fro, and these guys were like gods. You know, you're just so pumped up. And I was always told, okay, if you want to be a pro, go for it, but go get your education if you can. Right. And so I was always pushed to keep it indoor so that I could get a scholarship, because there's no men's beach, and there hasn't been women's beach on the collegiate level until 2016, officially on the NCAA. So I think most players, including yourself, you know, you got that degree and learned a lot as well. I was under Coach Marv Dunphy at Pepperdine, and I learned a ton that I could transfer into playing on my own. But I think most players are college graduates, I would say, in the United States, and that may delay some of our development on the beach. Because imagine if you just dropped everything and you were 15 and you're just like, I'm not going to school, I'm just going to go down the beach every day.
Yeah. Like if Miles Partain just didn't decide not to go to UCLA.
Yeah, just start, you know, going hard, and that was your only deal.
I think I could have made the tour earlier. Well, at least like during the time I was in college, maybe by the time I was... Make the tour, meaning like main draws, like consistently, like maybe like 19, 20, around there. Like I was playing pretty high level volleyball in high school, but like it wasn't even, we just played for fun, and we had these really high level local tournaments because we had so many good players, but it wasn't even an option. So it's like,
you were gonna finish the school thing and then do it.
I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about it as an option. Right. I was just like, that's what you do. You go and play college volleyball if you're good at it, indoors.
And I think that, like, Molensorm from Norway, going to the volleyball academy that they went to, and living and eating and breathing volleyball, beach volleyball.
And they also grew up in the YouTube era, so now they're watching all the volleyball that's happening over the world, whereas, like, for me as a kid, and way less for you probably, it was like once every weekend during the summer, you got to catch that one match that was on the finals or something, you know?
It's true. It's so true. And I think if you go all in, you'll see the players developing earlier, like we're seeing with those two from Norway, who are pretty incredible what they've done over the last couple of years. Yeah. And they are so young. Yeah. So is it an anomaly or is this the new norm? I guess is the question. But the cool thing about the sport is obviously like your former partner John Hyden is proving you can play it for a very long time, and experience trumps sheer physicality. Usually.
Right.
But the international game, and you would probably attest to it, it's getting so physical. It's pretty incredible the level that it's being played at. And, just watching you guys in the World Championships in Hamburg, because I was calling that, it's you're almost in awe just like some of the stuff that's being done. Yeah. And it's cool to see, but the level, it's like you look back on indoor, and you probably started looking back. For me, it's a lot longer, but we were not playing the type of volleyball that is being played now in the indoor game. So it's a different game.
Yeah.
You don't have 5 hitters. We didn't have 5 hitters. Two flying out of the back row, and sometimes the back row attack's more effective than the front row.
Because they're so big and jumping so high. Yeah.
And I'm always amazed at middle blockers, how good they are at reading. So you put me in the middle, and I'm looking, like a fool. I'm going that
5
way,
options,
and the ball's being
imagine that.
shot. Yeah, So I think the beach game is kind of getting that way as well, but not at quite the rate, of indoor. But I think people are running more tempo, more kind of flares out and moving around, and it's fun. I'm trying to think of one team that really, is it Poland?
Poland was the first team to really, do it consistently.
Yeah.
They got Enrico Rossi and Adrian Karambula have turned it into an art form.
Really?
Yeah, Adrian,
they go crazy.
So it's pushing the limits, and that type of play hasn't been consistent enough yet. It's almost I can't say it's a novelty. It's successful at times, and then it's not. It'd be interesting to see the top team in the world running those kind of crazy plays.
It's so complicated. You're getting yourself into trouble.
Yeah, sometimes it works against you.
And at the highest level, there's so much on the line, and it's how much am I willing to try?
Yeah.
That's why teams have been kind of scared to do it. Because if you do it at the wrong time, or if you do a shoot, and that thing hangs up there too long, and you already jumped, you look like an idiot, and you just ruined probably a free ball that you ran it on.
I'm amazed at the communication or the lack thereof, and the running plays, because Wojciak and Cantor, you didn't really see any communication. It was all the way to the pin, 30 feet.
Back shoots and then fake. Shoot to quicks. That's when Ryan.
So I wonder what their
they didn't say a word. He's I have no idea how they do it.
Yeah. Well, I played in World University Games in Kazan, Russia, 2011, I think, something like that. And those guys were partners at that time. And I had heard that they were the youth world champions or whatever. So they were the big dogs together as a team back then. And now it's 2020, and those guys have been playing together longer than anyone ever plays together. And so I'm sure that has something to do with it. It's funny that on the road you'll see there's 2 Polish teams usually, and the partners will switch up. One partner will go with the other team, and the other partner they won't hang out together too much. They've probably just spent way too much time together.
And that's true. Internationally, I remember just getting your own room apart from your partner, away from your partner, was a nice little break.
Totally,
Just so you could have, your own space, because you're spending more time with your partner than your spouse or, your wife or your girlfriend or whatever. And it's definitely a challenge.
You get sick of seeing their dirty underwear or wet, sweaty board shorts in your shower.
Right. So true.
How was it traveling with Fenoy? Because you guys had such a good run for a pretty long time.
It was awesome.
Until the rules changed and kind of forced your hand, probably.
Yeah. You know what? It was funny in hindsight, because it didn't have a lot of success in 2004 yet. I made the squad. It would have been cool to try to defend our medal together, if I could go back and switch that, based on how poorly the performance was in 04. But Eric is awesome, you know. I mean, Eric and I are good friends, and we got along really well. So traveling and being on the road was really easy. Mm-hmm. But you always needed a break here and there. That's what I was talking about. But we had a lot of fun. You know, we kind of have a similar sense of humor, and just it was kind of a new frontier in a sense, you know, because everybody's doing what we were doing. Like even Karch and Kent didn't have to do what we did in terms of traveling the world to qualify. Right. If you remember in '96, like it was going to be, I think we had a trials almost. We had a trials. Yeah, we did have a trial in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And that determined the AVP teams. And then St. John got in through the FIVB. Right. So after that year, there was no trial. It was get out on the road. I think it was your top 8, right? Which is now is your top 12. Is that accurate? It's your best 12 now. Best 12, it was your best 8. You could play in 20 tournaments, but it was just going to be your best 8. Okay. Right. And so it was cool being part of that, almost pioneers of just going out on the road and trying to qualify for the Olympics. And like I said, it came down to Belgium, which was about 45 days prior to the Olympics, the last qualification event. Okay. And we needed to get 4th place or better. We were trailing behind Karch Karai and Adam Johnson. And that weekend, Karch actually dislocated his shoulder. Oh, man. And it was fascinating because regardless of that, we still needed a top 4. Right. And we were in, you know, when you get stuck in that same seating, kind of where you're playing the same damn team every time. And the same team we would play every time was Emmanuel and Jose. Oh, I mean, and we knew if we were going to make the Olympics, we had to go through those guys. And we ended up beating them, we finished in 3rd place. And wow, I mean, that was such a thrill. We ended up playing Carl Hinkle and St. John Smith to get to the top 4 to basically punch our ticket, right?
Yeah, you had to earn it.
And so we're playing. Here's the interesting thing, and you know, St. John and Karch have had their battles over the years. So we're in a position, right? If we lose, Karch and Adam are in the Olympics. Yeah. Yet Karch probably won't be able to play because of the shoulder, right? Because of the shoulder. So Adam, you have to play with someone else who's qualified. So we're thinking maybe St. John wants us to win, you know, because his rivalry with, you know, Karch. Yeah. And then, but the other hand, Carl is thinking if Karch and Adam qualify and Karch can't play, and Adam will play with Carl. So, and I think that was what was going to happen. So we get out there and we won the coin toss, we picked the good side. Carl comes out, just bombing serves. Mm-hmm. They go up 5-0 on the bad side. Oh. On the bad side, 1-15.
Oh, man.
I mean, he's just pinging lines. He comes out like, it's like Superman, you know, and Carl's like that guy. Carl could, you know, play some crazy volleyball at times. Yeah. Like one of the best matches in history is St. John, St. John and Carl, against Kent and Karch in '96, and just an incredible player. He comes out bombing. 5-0, we go down. Then we get a couple, so it's 8-2. We, you know, going to the good side, and then we got all 5. They were up 8-7. We ended up winning, I think, 15-11 in the end. And but you know, we're thinking like, oh, maybe St. John won't go as hard. Right. And then Carl over here is like Superman, and it was crazy. But winning that kind of really took a load off our shoulders because there was pressure that whole time. And then once we got in, it was, you know, a lot of people were like, you know, Karch should probably go because he won the gold in '96. Right. He's, you know, I mean, come on, he's Karch. He won 84, 88 indoor, 96 on the beach. Oh, yeah. And so, you know, a lot of people like, no, they're playing better. And so that kind of put probably a chip on our shoulder. Like you want, it's always, you know how it is when you're playing with something to prove. Yeah. And people doubt you and you don't have a shot, and you know, and I remember even going down to the Olympics, you know, people were like, yeah, you know, take a lot of pictures, have fun, you know what I mean? And you're like, I see what you're saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we went down there and we really enjoyed it. Eric and I, like I said, similar personalities. We said, let's like immerse ourselves in this experience. We're going to opening ceremonies, even if we're playing at 8:00 the next morning. We're staying in the village. We're going to just take it all in. And we stayed in the village. It was awesome. Sydney was prepared so far in advance. They were just so fired up to have it, and so many people, volunteers driving you around that had saved up their 2 weeks vacation to volunteer that year. Like they were just so into it, and the hospitality. Yeah, it was just so awesome, just for the chance to drive athletes around. Yeah. And there was just a ton of volunteers, and the village was about 40 minutes away from the venue, but you know, we really used that 40 minutes driving on the bus or whatever to kind of get in the right mindset. Totally, so we used it really to our advantage rather than, if you're right there sometimes and
you're not gonna have a quiet second.
Yeah, you jump onto you get on the beach, you start the routine, and everything starts rolling. So I think we used that time to our advantage, and Bondi Beach was just incredible. Like, historic beach. That's where the lifeguard was created, I'm told, and it's really, really a cool spot. It reminded me of Laguna, my hometown, but that was an incredible experience, and we stayed as long as we could. And once we won, we were kind of advised to get back and do as much media and really enjoy it, because there's so many successful American athletes. It's not like a country where you're the only one that won gold. It's like there's 100 gold medalists coming home usually. Yeah,
well, I feel like you guys might have been one of the rare American athletes to win gold that might not have been expected to win a gold. So that was probably an interesting role, because you said people were like, oh, just take some pictures, have fun.
Enjoy it. And you want to, right? Because just making the Olympics is such a huge accomplishment. And then, you know, as each round goes by and you get a little closer, because our whole goal, Eric and I would always say, let's bring home some jewelry. You know, like, we didn't care. Let's bring home a medal. Yeah. You know, bronze, silver, gold. Everyone, you want to win gold, but it's, you know, if you can focus one point at a time and one match at a time, and I think that's what we were able to do. And it's kind of cliche, you hear it a lot, but to actually do it, where you're like, next point. Right. And if you watch, and I don't know if you've ever seen the winning point where Eric stuffs the ball and he turns around and he tackles me, basically, I'm almost in shock because I'm so locked in to, like, we got another point.
We got to surf.
Like, wait, let me check the scoreboard.
And
I
you know,
think we won, but you sure?
Yeah, so like I said, you talk about it a lot, and I think that was the one time really I definitely during my career I was so locked in at this next year. We weren't looking at the bracket like, who do we play if we win? There was no if. It was like, all right, here's the team. And I had a buddy from college, Greg Vernovich, who was coaching us, and he would cut tape. And back then he was, you know, doing VHS to VHS. Didn't have the whole digital thing, but we would watch, you know, like a 5-minute video to learn tendencies. Oh, when the guy does this, he goes here. And I think we knew a lot of tendencies that the player themselves didn't know. Right. They did. And it just, every point is so valuable. And you know what I tell the players that I'm coaching now is, like, you don't know when that play is going to happen that is going to change the entire match. That it's going to result in a 4-point run in your favor. Yeah. And if you don't go, it could result in a 4-point run the other way. And so that's, you just got to bust your ass on every play. Yeah. And good things happen. Yeah. Right. So
when you and Eric got that, when you beat St. John and Carl, did you know in the moment that you had qualified for the Olympics?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, we knew we got to be in the top 4 in this final event. Yeah. And going into the event, you're thinking to yourself, like, 2 years and we couldn't figure it out. Like, it comes down to this. Yeah. And it's like almost frustrating, but at the same time, it's like, here we go, you got to go. Yeah. And it was one point in time, and like going through the Brazilians was was huge.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't let down. Like getting through Brazil didn't get us qualified. We were still now at like 5th.
Right.
And if you win that next one, you're in the crossover, which
all you had to do was beat one of the best players of all time.
Right. Exactly. And it's crazy because St. John was one of my favorite players, or has always been. But when I was a kid, I remember getting his hat because we would spend the night at the beach, be in the front row, and be as close as you could with the players, and it was just a different time. There was no grandstands.
Right.
Yeah.
You've seen some of the photos.
Yep.
Yeah.
It just goes, 30 rows deep
Some
of just
coolest
people.
pictures.
Yeah. And you never think as a kid that you're gonna play against those. Like when you watch the NBA nowadays, and someone starts playing, and they're like, "Well, this person was born when LeBron was 17."
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you just don't realize the gap gets closer and closer.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to play against like Randy Stoklos and St. John Smith was, when you're a kid, you don't even think that's a possibility.
Yeah. Right.
And so I always loved playing those great players, and playing against Karch was always awesome because such a sportsman, but you were always he was gonna try to beat you no matter what, right? Like he was one of the gnarliest competitors. And so I think all the matches that I played against him, it raised my game. It kind of showed you what you could push your level to.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool, and it's such a fun sport, and it's kind of been up and down the whole behind the scenes of it, but ultimately it comes down to the players and kind of the history that is built, the fabric of the sport, because everybody's got the stories, and like right now, you're in the heat of it, you're living it.
I'm like relating to like everything you're saying.
Yeah. you're living it right now.
I got
and
Jake and Phil and Nick and them that I grew up watching. Wow, now I got to go beat them and try to get this spot, and we're all right there. Like it could easily come down to Rome. We got like 7 events. And Rome's the biggest points. So it could come down to that where it's like
Just 1 5-star.
if they get this, then they get this, and
Do you know how many 5-stars there are for the?
Before
Just one. In Rome.
It's Rome, and the cutoff's the 15th. Rome ends on the 14th.
So Rome is your Belgium.
Yes.
For me.
It could be. Hopefully,
It could be.
Hopefully we're sitting pretty.
Yeah.
And the other boys are battling it out.
Have fun, fellas.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it's.
I'm excited to experience that. Hopefully
So
the exact
it's
same way.
wide open right now, or
We're pretty close. We're all. I mean, I think Jake and Taylor are in the lead now with that 4-star win. You really just got to look at averages.
Right,
And Phil and Nick have a little higher average than us, but I mean, it all comes down to like we're all within like 40 points or something like that.
Got it.
And that's out of like averages of like 500 something, right?
Yeah.
He probably knows.
Yeah, they're if you like take their Phil and Nick only have 10 events, but if you were to add their average finish to the next 2, like they're like 20 points from Try and Trev, who are like 40 points behind.
Got it.
So theirs is like it's just a 3-horse race.
Does anyone even have 12?
40 points is one finish.
They do, and Jake and Taylor just got their 12th.
Okay.
So I think Try and Trev was like 14 maybe. So they're just dropping now.
Got it.
13, I think,
Got it.
Yeah.
And you'll have those weekends where you'll finish like what your worst is, and it doesn't help you.
Right, yeah.
Those are the worst. Don't have any of those weekends. You're like, I could have not shown up, and I'd be in a better. I should have just skipped this and rest.
Exactly.
So don't let that happen.
Yeah. I know we're running short on time. We want to make sure we get you out of here when you need to go. One thing that I was just so curious about was because you were kind of starting to come up at such an interesting time in retrospect, probably pretty scary for you, when the AVP was just in such flux in those late 90s, and then the World Tour was only like, it was kind of a baby when you really started to come up. So what was it like as a player? Were you ever like, the AVP's changed ownership 3 times in 4 years. The FIV's kind of a thing, but not really.
Yeah, it was challenging. Late 90s were a lot of turbulence in the sport. Early 90s, things were flourishing. You still had Miller Lite was still involved, and they kind of used it as a marketing arm. The tour was like, it was the Miller Lite AVP tour for so many years. And I think for many years at the end of the year, there would be a loss, but Miller would just write a check.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of the way it went. And then, you know, the debt just kind of kept growing, and a new owner would come on, but they wouldn't really look at the debt and say that was the last person's debt, but it's the same company. So, you know, you can't ignore it. And it kind of came to a head, like you said, in the late 90s. As a player, you're thinking, you know, I just want to play. And I got the tail end of some really the good stuff. Like, gosh, at the time, I remember playing in the King of the Beach, and I got a second to David Swadek. I think he'd won, and you know, I made 25 or 30 grand in just that tournament alone. You know, when Canyon and I won in 1997 in Hermosa, we split 60,000. And so at the time, we were thinking, like, it's crazy to be now 22 years later, and that still being like, people are like, whoa, that's a big purse. Yeah. Whereas we thought, like, at that point, we're like, oh man, we're gonna have $500,000. We're gonna have $500,000 tournaments,
right?
Or $1 million tournaments if we're already at,
right?
You know, splitting totally, 60,
yeah.
And that it hasn't gone there has been tough. But you know, you're thinking, like, if it's this now, what's it going to be in 20 years? And
inflation.
Yeah.
And so, but I remember winning that, and you're like, oh my God, you win like 30 grand, but I think like $50 was taken out for entry fee or something. So it was like 29 and change, but you were just like, wow, this is so big. But yeah, you're right. A lot of turbulence at the time, but you just play. You know, you play because you love the game, and you try to do what you can off the court from the political side, and you probably experiencing it now. You're always trying to get the most for the players. You're trying to get the most for the tour, but if you get too caught up in it, you become just this advocate. Right. Whereas your performance on the court speaks louder than anything.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you're a baller, people are going to be like, hey, you know, they want to talk to the top 5 player that wants to make change, not the player who might be ranked 25. Yeah. You know, it's just, it's one of those situations, the reality of it, you carry more weight the more success you have.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, look at Misty and Carrie. Like, you ask people to name 2 women's volleyball players. Before Misty and Carrie, people would name Gabby Reese because of her, you know, her success, not only playing, but the 4-person tour and her modeling and her personality, and it was like this whole package. Right. And then I think Misty and Carrie kind of transcended the sport because they got so big that they were able to infiltrate fields that traditionally beach volleyball players don't go to. Yeah. And by doing so, they created a bigger voice for themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, when people talk like that, people listen more. You know, so the biggest thing is to be successful and to push and be as relevant as you can. And I think you have a bigger voice and can make more change. I guess. Yeah,
for sure. And so at USC, how can our listeners kind of follow along the USC team this season?
Well, on Instagram, it's USC Beach, and we keep that pretty active and moving. I believe the schedule's up. If you just type in USC Beach Volleyball, you're going to go to the roster, find out, you know, not only the coaching staff, but the players. And we'll start playing in late February. We'll have an alumni match, which is really cool because we have some spectacular alumni. So actually, that reminds me, I got to reach out, you know, to April Ross and to Sarah Hughes and to Kelly Clays, Kessie. Kessie was just honored at a Legends match that the men's volleyball program puts together, and we kind of work with them on that. So yeah, just so many. You know, I'm leaving out a million people, but such a great alumni. Yeah. And so we'll kick that off, and just the support's been great, and it's so fun. The format's so cool at the collegiate level. Just having the 5 teams, it's so much drama, and the fact that the 5 team is no less important than the number 1 team. Yeah. And so it's just being one of those starting teams is what it's all about. No one's going to ask you what position you played at at the end of the day. It's just, how'd you do, and
that
so
ring right there.
Yeah.
It says it all.
So, it's been a good run as an assistant, winning 3 out of 4 years that I was there. But there's nothing like being a head coach. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to take it one step at a time, and just really blessed to be in the position I am to talking about having the coaching job, having the AVP and Amazon deal, and getting the opportunity. I'm actually going to be the sideline reporter for NBC in Tokyo.
Oh,
which
awesome.
is
Congrats.
thanks. I appreciate it. So, I'm like I said, really thankful for everything. But I try to put in a lot of hard work, and hopefully it pays off. And hopefully I can be maybe that example that the great players were to me when I was a kid.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dan, thank you tons for coming on. We know you're crazy busy. So we
always have time.
Appreciate you.
Glad I got the invite. I know it's after you guys went triple digits on episodes, but I'll take it. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank